All right, let's dive into one of the most ambitious, controversial, and frankly game-changing periods in all of American history, Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. This wasn't just some government program. It was a radical, desperate attempt to save a nation that was truly on the brink of collapse.
To really get a grip on the New Deal, you've got to start with this one number, 25%. In the early 1930s, that was the unemployment rate. Think about that. One out of every 4 people who wanted a job couldn't find one. Banks were failing left and right. Farms were going under. The country was in an absolute state of crisis.
So put yourself in FDR's shoes when he takes office in 1933. This is the question on your desk. How do you fix a completely broken country? It wasn't just about fixing the economy. It was about giving people hope again. I mean, where do you even start with a problem that massive?
Well, his answer was a whirlwind of programs that would completely change the role of government in America. His answer was the New Deal.
Okay, so here's the thing you really need to get about the New Deal. It wasn't some single, perfectly drawn-up plan. Not at all. It was a whole collection of programs, reforms, and experiments, all rolled out over years. It was bold for sure, it was messy, and most importantly, it changed over time. And that evolution, that's the key to understanding the whole thing. The New Deal is really a tale of 2 different plans, 2 totally distinct phases that had very different goals and, you'll see, very different ways of getting things done.
So, let's jump into phase 1. The best way to think about this is like economic first aid. Seriously, the country was on the operating table, bleeding out, and FDR's #1 job was just to stop the hemorrhaging.
This initial response was famously built around a simple idea, the 3 R's. Relief was about getting immediate help, food and money, to people who were jobless and starving. Recovery was all about restarting the entire engine of the American economy, and reform was about fixing the broken financial system so that a crash like this could never, ever happen again.
So what did those 3 R's actually look like in the real world? Well, you had things like the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, which gave immediate relief by putting millions of young men to work on environmental projects. Then for recovery, you had the Public Works Administration funding huge projects like bridges and dams. And for reform, you had the FDIC, which insured people's money in the bank, a move so critical to restoring trust that we still have it today. It was just a massive, all-out effort to stabilize a nation in freefall.
But here's the thing, putting a Band-Aid on a massive wound doesn't heal it completely. The crisis was far from over. So now we move into phase 2, where the whole focus shifts from that immediate first aid to building long-term, lasting security for every American.
So why the big shift? Well, for one, not everyone was a fan. FDR was getting hit with criticism that the first phase just didn't go far enough to help people. On top of that, the Supreme Court was actually striking down some of his most important programs. So what did he do? He didn't back down, he doubled down, with a much more aggressive and, frankly, a much more permanent vision.
And this, right here, is where things get truly game-changing. These are the legendary programs that still shape our world. We're talking about the Social Security Act, creating a permanent safety net for retirees and the unemployed. The Works Progress Administration, the WPA, became the biggest employer in the entire country, building everything from roads to creating public art. And the Wagner Act? It gave powerful new rights to labor unions. This wasn't just about recovery anymore. This was about fundamentally restructuring American society.
Okay, so we've got the 2 phases down. Now let's really put them head-to-head and unpack what was so different between them. This is where you see the fundamental shift in strategy. This is the million-dollar question, right? What really changed between that first phase and the second? What was the big idea, the huge shift in thinking that separated these 2 massive efforts?
And honestly, it all comes down to this. The first New Deal was about stopping the bleeding. It was emergency triage for a dying economy. The second New Deal was about building a healthier, stronger, more resilient country for the long haul. The focus shifted from just immediate relief to long-term security and social justice.
This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? Just look at the social safety net row. In the first phase, pretty much non-existent. In the second, boom, it's the absolute centerpiece with Social Security. Or look at labor rights. The first phase just set some industry codes, but the second one actively protected a worker's right to unionize with the Wagner Act. You can see it clear as day, a move from temporary fixes to permanent foundational structures.
So, what's the big takeaway? Why are we still talking about all of this stuff so many decades later? Let's get into the New Deal's incredible, lasting legacy.
If there's one thing to remember,
It's this. Programs born in that second New Deal, especially things like Social Security and unemployment insurance, literally created the foundation of the modern American social safety net. The whole idea that the government has a fundamental responsibility to provide a basic level of security for its citizens, that idea was truly cemented during this time.
At the end of the day, the New Deal created a whole new contract between the American people and their government. It totally redefined what we could and maybe should expect from the state when things go wrong. And that central question it raised, how big of a role should the government really play in our lives? That's a debate that is just as alive and just as heated in our politics today as it was back in the 1930s.